The bad to the bone video. This is my Ned and drop shot box. I have one whole box dedicated to Ned and drop shot baits. And then we got these guys. Yeah, if you hate fishing a Ned, you're gonna like this video. Bam! A little coffee for this video. Excuse me. I get two main comments when it comes to my Ned Rig videos. One is, I hate Ned Rig fishing. Fair enough. This video might actually help you with that. And two is, what's that giant shaky head on your deck? And I'm like, it's not a shaky head. It's a Ned Rig. A MAG Ned Rig. So if you hate Ned Rig fishing, this video might actually appeal to you. This time of year, it's warm, it's summer, weather's pretty stable, fish are eating bigger things. There's a rig that, I wouldn't say I developed it, the JT kind of developed it. A lot of guys have kind of put their 2 cents into it, but I'll call it a MAG Ned Rig. It's a lot like a shaky head. I know there's gonna be all kinds of guys down in the comments box like, why don't you just throw a shaky head? Well, maybe, dude. Go throw a shaky head. I don't care. Like, I'm gonna throw this because I catch giants on it. I'm gonna show you how to rig it up. And really, for those of you guys that don't like Ned Rig fishing, throwing a little tiny bait on a super lightweight, on a little tiny spinning rod, this is going to appeal to you. I got two different heads that I use. One is either going to be, if I'm in super heavy cover, that's the Power Ned. Stouter, whoa, throw it around, bro. It's got a stouter hook on it and a stouter brush guard, so I can throw it. You can see we're like surrounded by like grass and stuff. I can throw it through thick grass. It's not going to be perfect, you know, it's not going to be a Texas rig, but you'd be amazed how cleanly this rig comes through the grass, because oftentimes you're throwing it with like a straight tail worm. And then the other one is this, and classically called too, it's JTK, it's a JT Kenny MAG Ned from Nichols. Stouter hook, still has a brush guard, but in grass and super thick stuff like wood, that thing is going to hang up. But once again, it's a bigger hook. You don't see that kind of hook on a Ned Rig usually. Now keep in mind, this is something you can do shallow to deep. You know, if you got fish shallow, right now there's a bunch of brim beds. Like, if you can see, I don't know if there's like a hole there and a hole there in the eelgrass, and there's a bunch of brim beds around. So the brim are like yay big, right? So I can use the shallow to mimic brim with a little bit lighter weight, or I can go deep where I really like to use it on these ledges and basically present like this short, stubby, fat, like Mondo bait, like turd, TRD, you know, out deep, and give them a big but more subtle presentation than they're used to on that Ned head. There's something stupid good about that Ned head, that little jig head, and I've played around with it in the pool a little bit, and it stands up, yes, yeah, especially if you use like a floating thing, but there's something about the way it rocks or moves and glides across the bottom that just triggers more bites. You can do this with any bait that you want, just so it's short, fat, and thick. This video is going in the wrong direction. My biggest deal is I have a couple that I'd say tweaked and sort of got in depth with this rig using, and they work. So I can guarantee the workability of the following baits. You know, you can try whatever you want, but there's two of them, and that is an ace, or a fat ace, I guess I should say. This is the 7-inch fat ace or a 6-inch fat ace from Gambler, but basically your Mondo stick baits. And what's nice about it is we actually cut these jokers in half, but this is huge. Like, this is my true MAG Ned, 7-inch, super wide gauge, dude. But I'm gonna cut this thing in half. I'm gonna show you how to rig one up in a second, but let me show you the rest of these baits. The Demiki Stinger. This is actually, I think, the 5.5. The 4-inch is also super viable. They also make a super Mondo one, kind of like that 7-inch Gambler Fat Ace. It's Mondo, dude. Like, if you got bigs and they like a straight tail, kind of like little shaky thing, like you want to present a big bait, but at the same time have it be super subtle, like, I'll put links to all this stuff down in the description box. This thing is huge, the Demiki one. It's gigantic. What I like to do is treat this kind of like you'd fish a shaky head. You know, I throw it out there and I'm maybe dragging ever so slowly, or maybe ever so gently just shaking that rod tip. I think a lot of times it really looks like a big brim or a big panfish, something along those lines to these fish, and you can present it in a very still but moving fashion. So I can put it out there, say on a ledge, and you throw it out there, get it to the bottom, and I can sit there and shake the rod tip, or I can just like pull slack out of the line. I don't know if you guys have ever tried that, but basically you put a little slack in the line and you just slowly pull the slack out of the line. It barely, if any, moves the bait, but it makes the bait kind of walk a little bit or just kind of drift around. So you can do a lot of different things without doing anything to this bait, and it's a big subtle presentation. I keep coming back to that. That's probably the most important part. They do not see it. It's big in the sense that it's wide, it's girthy, it's got gauge to it, but it's not super super long. It's not your 10-inch worm. It's not like your creature bait with all these like crazy appendages flapping all over the place. So it's not as intrusive as your traditional summer creature worm and soft plastic that you normally throw. So let's get one of these jokers rigged up. I'm going to show you my rigging. This is an offshore setup because I am going to be doing a little bit of ledge fishing today. So I have this 7-inch fat ace. What I like to do is I find the worm sack. That's what's nice with the stick baits, is you can kind of identify very easily like a midsection. So that worm sack is the smooth part right there. So I identify that, and I usually go like a 1/4 inch, 1/8 of an inch right above that, and I give it the snip. Use the scissors, it makes it more even and makes it sit on the hook better when you actually do this Ned rig deal. So basically I got 2 Ned rigs. One of the things that you guys have to figure out on different bodies of water, the pointed one works better than the stubby one. On some bodies of water, the stubby one works better than the pointed one, and vice versa. I found in Alabama, the stubby one usually works better than the pointed one. In Florida, the pointed one works better than the stubby one. So you got to kind of play with it. The other thing too is I do swim this rig. Well, I've showed you guys Ned rig, swimming and Ned rig in videos prior. The pointed one does work a little bit better for the swimming Ned rig. That tail just wags a little bit better. So keep that in mind kind of too, so you can use one or the other and then stash the rest in the bag. So in this case, we're going to do the pointed one on this guy. So I have, this is, it's just under 3/8 of an ounce. This is a Nichols JT Kenny MAG Ned head. This is going to be my offshore setup. I'm going to tell you exactly what the rod and reel setup for this is as well. And this would be more of an open water or sparse cover type setup. So you take this guy, and with the Nichols, you have to kind of keep in mind the hook is up on the jig a little bit. I don't know if you guys can see that right there. So basically it's not totally centered. So when I'm actually rigging this thing up, I don't want to hook it right in the center. I want to hook it out just a little ways, if you guys can see that right there. So there we go. You're gonna bring it through. It's super technical, right? And then you slide it up. Another trick with the Nichols, since it doesn't have the screw keeper like the Gambler Power Ned, there's a little wire keeper. I don't have another one out, but basically there's a little wire keeper that sticks right there. Just go like that. And basically that pressure hooks that plastic onto there. It's still gonna slide down from time to time, don't get me wrong, but it does a better job. Then the nice part about the Ned too is you can kind of pull on your worm to adjust it. But look at that. That is a dangle dong right there. It's a big joker, dude. Hashtag dangle dong. Look at that thing. That's beautiful. And you see, even just picking it up, it has that wave. Now, it's a little bit like, it's not as tight of a wave as like a little tiny bait that we've done in spring, like the Power Ned worm and that, but it's just got a little wonka like that. It's got a little hot dog to it, dude. And it drives the fish nuts. It's interesting because I told you guys it's not like finesse spinning rod and stuff like that. I do throw it on bait casting tackle, but I throw it on lighter bait casting tackle. This is a 7-foot medium Halo TI. I have a 7, I think it's a 7.2 Shimano SLX on there. Basically, it's your sort of lighter step down bait casting gear, 12-pound fluorocarbon. That's my offshore setup. I just find that when these fish bite this, sometimes they're gonna be like a tick, and it's awesome when it's like that. They bonk it, it feels just like a worm bite. More times than not, when you're throwing this, it's because they're not chomping like your shaky head, your jig, and stuff along those lines. A lot of times this is going to be bigger fish, and it's going to be just like a hold. So what I like is for the rod to be able to load up, and that medium action has a little bit softer tip to it, a little more moderate bend, and really you just kind of, you're like, wow, am I stuck on a rock? Or wow, I'm really hung on that ledge. And then all of a sudden the ledge starts swimming to the left, or you think you're hung on the bottom and it pulls back. So I like having that rod because it's a little bit of a security blanket for me to be able to just kind of let the rod load up to set the hook, instead of me always having to like, oh, is that a bite? Let me set the hook. Because really with this deal, it's really a sweeping hook set. You don't want to be laying the grease to them all the time. Now, when it comes to fishing a MAG Ned in this type of cover where it's heavier, shallow, things along those lines, you are going to have to up the ante. If you're using braid, I'd highly recommend like a medium heavy action rod, maybe like a 7.2, 7.3. If you're using fluorocarbon, you can look at a heavy, but I once again say with maybe like a medium heavy but a little bit shorter rod. One of the things that you have to keep in mind is, even though it's beefed up hooks and a little more beefed up design on these Neds, they're still Neds, dude. So it's a little bit finessey approach to more standard fishing. This is all my Ned stuff. I have way too much finesse stuff. Mike's getting soft in his old age, dude. Bunch of finesse products. I love me a Ned and it catches giants. And if you hate a Ned, this might actually be the perfect solution for you, because you can throw something bigger, you know, fish something bigger, fish something on bait casting tackle. It's a little more comfortable for guys who really don't want to go down and dangle dick like we've always talked about with those smaller downsized baits on a spinning rod and that. And what's cool is you can fish in some places that you don't normally think about fishing a Ned, like this grass, like this thick grass, deep offshore, you know, where you can never get enough weight on those little tiny Neds to get it down to 25, 30 foot, things along those lines, especially if there's current. But give it a try. If you guys got any questions, this is one technique that I am dialed in on. I have done this all the time, every time, anywhere, anyhow, and I've caught a lot of giants on it. I really feel like it's a strong suit for me. So if you got any questions, drop them down in the comments box. I'll get right to them. If you got anything to add too, I know there's different approaches to this because it's been out for quite a while. Me and JT have been doing this for like 4 years now, 5 years since we put out some of the original videos. So there's a lot of guys doing it, a lot of different tweaks. But hit that like and subscribe button. Get yourself a MAG Ned. Try it out. It's a fun way to fish, dude. You get a lot of bites and you get some big bites. It's a great way to catch a lot of fish this summer, especially when they get all weird and that. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. We are out. I'm gonna go fishing. I'll talk to you guys later.